if we're going to be effective in sharing the good news and having harvest hands, we need to look for openness. Listen to verses 5-8 that Jesus says. Now they're in the towns, they're in the villages, they're going in the houses, the 72. He says, when you enter a house, first say, peace to this house. If someone who promotes peace is there, your peace will rest on them. If not, it will return to you. Jesus here wanted to teach us to be effective in the way that we share our faith. And he points to the fact that as you're sharing the gospel and the good news, and by the way, you don't have to leave your sandals behind and leave your money behind and go, to an unknown place to be able to share the good news. You can share the good news with people at work, people in your house, neighbors that live near you, friends that you have. That's the most effective way to share your faith, is with people that God's already built relationships with. And they know you and they've seen your change. They know you're not perfect, but they know that you're different. Ever since you've encountered Jesus, you've started to change. And so what he's pointing to here is he's saying, hey, when you enter a house, peace to this house. Say peace to this house. This is the idea of a greeting when you went to the house. Jesus was basically telling them, test the temperature of the water. And if the temperature of the water is hot, then you know that's a place that I'm working. But if the temperature of the water is cold, then you know there's no activity there. That's not where I'm working at right now, or their heart is not in the right place. Sometimes we spend a lot of time sharing the faith with someone whose heart is completely hard and completely closed to what God has to do for their life. And we just try and we try. And man, we never know who's going to respond to God. So just because you share the faith one time doesn't mean, and they say no, doesn't mean they're not going to come to God. But Jesus is saying, you need to have your eyes open, because for every closed person there's another person that's open. And if all your energy goes to the person that when you try to talk to them about God, or you try to minister to them, they immediately shut you down or reject you, or they're angry at you, he's saying, listen, that person's not ready yet to receive me. But there's other people that you start to open that conversation up, and they're open immediately. Their heart is soft. They're ready for the first time in their life to come back to God or to have a relationship with God. What Jesus is saying is, look for those people. Look for those opportunities. Look for that openness. I'll never forget when me and my father were with a friend traveling to Spain for a conference, and our plane got delayed because of a strike in Spain, and so we got left in a really bad location. It was tough for us, Paris, France. He said, you're gonna have to spend a night in Paris. I hope we can handle. So they had a hotel for us, and my dad and my friend decided, hey, well, why don't we go and explore Paris? Because we had never been to Paris before. And so as we're making those plans, we run into another guy and just spark up a conversation in the airport with him. He was on our flight, and he says, hey, can I tag along with you guys? And we say, yeah, sure, join us. So we explore Paris with this man, we get to meet him, and the night ends in the most interesting way. We end in this coffee shop, and we start talking about God. I mean, he's with two pastors, so I mean, it's gonna come up at some point. We start talking about God with this man. I'll give you his name. His name's Raul. We start talking with this man. We start sharing the gospel with Raul and blessing him, and he says this. He says, it's really interesting that we're talking about this and you're talking to me about God. He says, my son is a pastor in Colorado, and he's doing this thing where you abstain from food, fasting. He's abstain, and he told me he's praying for me. He told me he's praying for me right now. And it's just weird. He said, this is just a weird encounter. And so we speak into that moment and say, hey, listen, Raul, can we just speak? That's not a coincidence that your son is doing a thing called fasting, which means he's pressing into God for your life. And God stopped the whole plane so that we could have this conversation with you, because there was a son in Colorado who said, I care so much about my dad knowing Jesus that I'm gonna fast and pray. And God goes, oh, I'm gonna change things then. They have plans to be here. I'm gonna make them stay overnight so they can have a coffee shop conversation at 11 o'clock about the Jesus that his son knows, because I heard his prayers.